Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Quick Slants with Bethel University head football coach Steve Johnson. Quick Slants is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Bethel coach questions about the Royals, football, or sports in general, or to just seek the coach's wisdom about life or whatever may be on your mind. This week, the coach shares his reflections on this past season with us, as well as shares his insights and enthusiasm for next year's team. We learn his surprise at how well Cutler is playing so far this season, and the coach talks with us a little bit about how to incorporate forgiveness while also holding players accountable on the field. As a quick note before we get into this week's show, during the off-season, Quick Slants will only appear on the first Thursday of every month, so we ask that you please have your questions into us by the Wednesday prior to that for that week's show. So let's get right to Quick Slants. So we want to welcome back Coach Johnson on our end of the season review. So Coach, let's first of all talk about the dramatic game against Burke. Your team, you talked about all season long that you were fighting through things all year long. You truly stayed in the battle. What were your thoughts about the game a few days after now?
A few days after, better. Winning and losing is a big deal. You know what I mean? And I think we had a 21-point lead and going in the fourth quarter, and I had some tough things happen, and you kind of can have a tendency to take a play here and a play there, and oh man, I wish it was done. It's not incredibly productive in valuation. Yes, it is, but you can ignore some things that are a different struggle. And I don't want to be, the biggest thing we don't want to be is inauthentic about it, and losing is not something that is, you can't say it's not okay because it happens, but I just feel like, winning's a big deal. And sometimes we say, well, everything's good, we're still, part of competing, and part of competing well is that desire to win, and the passion that takes, and so it does hurt. You can't let it define you. When we're 12-0, you win 12 straight. You can't let that define you either. So I don't want to overdo the struggle, but I don't want to underdo it either. I don't want to say that it's not important. You know what I mean? To win and to play to win it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and at the end of the day, you can't change anything right now. So you evaluate and you move on. So 2 days later, I'm excited for what's next, to be honest with you, and I want our guys to be that way too. And you gotta move through things, and staying in the fight isn't always. I don't want staying in the fight that we talk about to be like we're in a fetal position. Staying in the fight is, speaking truth to yourself and, and to your buddies, and caring about each other, and motivating each other because you love each other, you care about one another, and the gifts that I can give away are better than the ones I can give myself. So if we're all doing that, we're all going to grow and be something else. I do think, that I told our staff that if we win that game, there may be some stuff we miss, because right now we're scouring ourselves pretty big time, and I know that our players are really motivated to turn things around and be champions. And there are some just realities that are, as we think back, and I'm in player meetings right now, and our best offensive lineman, we lost him in the first game, and had a guy who played Wartburg, who's a great team, with a guy who's been an offensive player for 4 days, and a lot of guys out of position and a lot of different things. So the bad news is the injuries caused some young guys to have to play, and the good news is those guys are really good, and so they gain some experience. And so we're just going to move on from there, but our call right now is to simplify, not in a bad way, but get back to who we are. And I think that in your spiritual life, and in your family, and in your football, and in all those different things, it's really important that the foundation is sure, and you're not wavering off of that.
One of those young guys was Gunnar who has really come on for you at the end of the season, especially. It kind of reminds me of the way St. John's uses a Josh Bungham. Is that the way that he gets to play both in the receiving and in the running game, kick returns? He's kind of everywhere. Do you see Gunnar having that kind of impact for you guys over the next few years?
We think Gunnar is a crazy great player. He's a running back, and I'm, so I might have to put my foot down on that. Where Bungham is a receiver and he plays some running back and does all those things, and an excellent player, exciting guy. Gunnar does have some of those things, but he's one of the best running backs that I've seen in a long time, and I am really proud of him. And he is just a football player, because we put him out at receiver, and it's like we're giggling the first day because we had so many injuries with Bryce Marcourt, and Charles Johnson was down for a while, and all these guys, and then Jackson stepped up well, and Joey Lee and those guys, and so Gunnar hopped right in there, and wow, he's good, and then he's fun, and then he had an injury that he had to fight through, and we're really proud of him. He had a great game last game, and then he had a fumble that was super costly, and he's really having to fight through the sadness and all that on that, and that's just going to grow him, and we're loving him through it, but he's got to handle it and stuff like that. But he's going to be, I think, I honestly think he's going to be one of the great players in the history of our league. But he's probably going to do it mostly at running back, if I have anything to say about
it. You had a chance to see a lot of freshmen play this year, and they played exceptionally well for you. So tell me a little bit about what this bodes for you going forward.
I was just telling a friend that, people always ask about the recruiting class, and I'm always excited about it, and they're always really good, and there are some great things. But this one seemed a little special, and high profile men, Dawson Brown, Trey Anderson, Gunnar Bloom, the list goes on and on and on, John Pitlack, and kid out of Mankato, and just a ridiculous, but not just players, but guys. And, our culture is such that, we really, it's a big deal that you give up your own stuff and pour love out to each other, and that's where we feel like we can be powerful. And these guys are like, it's natural. It feels like that way. And so on top of being as good a class football-wise, physically, as I can ever remember, going even back to Kirby Carr and Phil Port in the same class, it's also deep, where it's a large number. And maybe coolest of all in the long run is that their hurts are, they're just soaking in who we are, and even defining who we are day to day, because that's how this organism is, and so it's a big deal.
That is great.
Yeah.
What were some of your final thoughts that you conveyed to your seniors?
I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm thankful. It's except for those guys, nobody knows what they've given more than us. Maybe their parents, but it looks good. Even the stuff that they had to fight through that maybe had to be fixed, they fixed it, and it was good. And they just gave off a sweet aroma, to the young guys, and that stuff causes me to come up grateful, because they're tough guys that are soft-hearted, and that's what we're trying to recruit, and that's who we want to be.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Did you have a player this season that you saw as your personal team's MVP and for offense and defense?
We're not very good at that stuff, but I think Landon Mathis, blows his knee and tears his ACL in the first game, and then plays through that, and coulda, woulda, shoulda. He's a great player, and he's a phenomenal player, and he played great. So I don't know. I think I got every position I got a guy that kind of stands out, and I think Marshall Klitsky, just his toughness, and he gained a lot of yards, but there's other stuff that's really neat about him. And the off season is such a growing time, and sometimes it feels long, but these guys, they're into it. You gotta be into this game because it's not worth it otherwise, because it hurts. So I would say maybe those two guys, Marshall and Landon, and then I think up front I think about Nate Holmgren, just an amazing guy that wearing Danny Lytle in the backfield. So
one thing I always really liked about watching Marshall play was that whenever he scored a touchdown, he didn't just celebrate with his team, but whoever was fans that were around the end zone, he always celebrated. It was like he wanted everybody else to be a part of that as well. I thought that was really beautiful.
That's really a neat thing, and it's kind of one of those deals that at our home games, especially some of our alumni and recent alumni, and even some that are a little further back, would stand right there, and then you kind of jump into those guys, and there's kind of that that connection that's you can't describe, the connection that you have when you mix the game and what it requires and what you put into it, and then the Jesus piece is a foundation. It's like, whoa, it's a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I know you probably can't give me names at this particular point, but can you tell us a little bit about what the recruiting class is looking like for you so far, and is there an area that you're really excited about at this point?
Yeah, we've got some kids in an area west of the cities that we're really excited about, and you want some spots. You need to and at D3, we've always feel like we've been blessed with our philosophy is that we're just looking for the right guys, and if you fit this culture, I think you're going to know it, and if you don't, it's not like we don't want you, but we want to be careful that what you're getting into, because you're good enough or whatever else, but can you give your heart, and I just want to teach, as we recruit, I want to teach young people, even and their parents, is that you need to find a place where you can give your heart to this deal, and because it's going to get broken, so whoever you give your heart to, you got to trust them, and there's some places that I'm not sure there's a real good crowd. And I know I'm talking like an old fart, but I want, I think our guys are gold, and they influence each other toward greatness of character and love and toughness, and I think that makes a difference in their families for sure, and then even in the world.
Excellent. Jumping off football for a moment, Joe Madden named NL Manager of the Year. Was there really any other choice?
Probably not. I think you have to think about the Mets Collins a little bit, and but I think Madden with what he had, and even the history of the craziness of that team, it's really pretty cool that he got that, and Bryant also, and I'm hoping for Arrieta. So yeah, so
nice trifecta there.
Yeah, that would be a cool deal, and now they're in the, and I think I think the Cubs, I'm hoping that they're really, I think they are, they're going to be really careful with their culture of who they bring in. I know they have plenty of money to do a lot of stuff, but they want to bring in the right guy as much as I know they're looking at pitchers and stuff, but I'd do the character dude if you could, because they're all ridiculous,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Heading to our fan questions this week, we first of all begin with Jake from St. Paul, who asks, Coach, every week I hear someone talk about for it to be a catch, the person had to make a football move. Is there an actual definition? Would you clearly know what defines that, or is that more of an interpretation by the ref?
I think I'm one of the worst rule guys ever. I just think I know them when something doesn't go right for us. But I think that a football move would be that you caught the ball and you're taking off. you're at least you're about to. But I can't imagine that, it feels to me like, especially in the pros, if you have 2 feet down and you have possession of the ball, that's not really a football move, but that's a catch, you know what I mean? So I think, if you have 2 feet on the ground and you have the ball and you're starting to move at all, I would say that that's a football move, you know what I mean? But I guess you could probably Google it or something. I'm not sure there's a definition, but I do know every single rule is interpreted, a certain way, and some refs are really good at that, and some people use them, to defend themselves, and that's irritating.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lenny from Hudson would like to know, it looks like Jay Cutler has really turned things around. Someone must have sent him some good juice.
Yeah, but I tell you what, there is good juice coming out of that guy, which was I couldn't never imagine it, but I think there is. As I read a little bit about their team, is that they're kind of weeding out some guys that aren't kind of into the heart part of the deal, and I don't know obviously intimately, but I just think that there's a feel that the guys care about each other, and I just think that's so unbelievably powerful because it's the greatest motivator. You can motivate with fear, and it works, but just for a while, and you can motivate with reward, and then and money and stuff, but it's never enough. And accolades and all that, it's never going to be enough. And but if you love somebody and you care about winning, you care about one another, and that love piece comes in there. That's the motivator that lasts. And so that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Mike from Minneapolis, who wants to know if you're a Minnesota Wild fan as well, and if you voted for the Blackhawks or the Wild when they squared off in the playoffs the last few seasons.
I am a Minnesota Wild fan as well, and I root for the Blackhawks all the time, and I root for the Wild except when they're playing the Blackhawks. I mean, no doubt about it. It's very close. There are Blackhawks that I don't think a hockey fan. It's like you can't not like them. And there's Wild, if anybody doesn't like Parisi just because of the character and he's skilled and all the things, you can't not like an awful lot of the Wild players. I think they're a class group. For sure. And so that's exciting for me, and obviously I live here and I like the Minnesota teams to win because people around me are happier than. But the Wild are. Yeah, I feel that way with the Twins too. I'm a pretty big Twins guy, and I'm a Viking, not that much.
Henry from Plymouth wants to know, Patrick Kane leads in both goals and points, he thinks. Do you think this whole experience might have led to him maturing to the point of really taking his game to the next level?
Boy, I'm a big believer in, some people think, well, bad stuff happens, he's going to grow from it, and that's not automatic because you got to lean into it. And I don't know, I know Patrick's got he's got some baggage, and he's also got some, it's pretty hard for us regular people to put our shoes and, our feet in the shoes of a guy who is, everybody's telling him how great he is all the time, he's ultra rich, and some of these kids, they're kids, they're 25 years old and they have millions of dollars, and is anybody, do they listen to anybody? And if Patrick Kane fought through this thing and examined the kind of man he wants to be, I think it might be, that would be my prayer that he's doing so good because he had to fight through something and, kind of humble himself toward, hey, what kind of man do I want to be outside of this, persona that I've created? And I think we're all that way. We just don't have as much, success. Success. And, what the what the world would say is amazing, he's got a lot of that, and so this thing, and I don't know what the truth is, and it's almost irrelevant to this question here is a great question. If he really has kind of, search me, oh God, know my heart, see if there be any wicked way in me, and then move on. It doesn't say to wallow in all that and move on. And if he's kind of taken an account of who he is, what he's done, and kind of gained some forgiveness in there and then marched on to learn, I can't imagine it wouldn't help his hockey. So.
One of the things that you talk a lot about is to hang with horses and not with donkeys kind of idea. It seems like when these guys have such success that it's not horses that try to run to them. It's the donkeys that want to gather around them and try to leech off them kind of thing. It's hard to get a perspective at that point. I would think.
And I've heard, and I know that they don't want to ever say anything bad, but I know enough about locker rooms and stuff like that is when I listen to the Patrick Kane does really well when he's by his teammates. And I think there's a lot of horses, Duncan Keith and some of those guys. And not that they're perfect and they've all got troubles and they've all got, same thing with other people, but I think they stay grounded. And, Patrick Kane, he needs, I think about Josh Hamilton, who's had just a crazy life that way. And he's, you need a spiritual director, and you really do. We all do, And I don't care what your status is, but I really believe that who you hang out with is going to mark your life. So be wise,
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Tim, the Bulls fan again, who would like to know, do you think it is time to turn the page on Derrick Rose and focus more on Jimmy Butler? He seems to be the real star of the Bulls now.
You know what? I love Jimmy Butler, and and Rose is great, but if I think that's kind of going to be up to Derrick Rose a little bit, and I really feel like if those guys could blend to not really have to have that, I think that we we take the template of Jordan and even maybe Kobe a little bit and LeBron, and who's that other guy is always big, Scottie Pippen, and that kind of thing. But I'm not sure you have to have the Jordan, and you got Durant and Westbrook, and when they're together, if you kind of he's the star now. I don't think that's healthy. If they're both kind of in the mix and it could be this guy one day, this guy one day, I think that's the greatness piece. That's what we'd like to be even, offensively next year. You think about, our quarterback and then Gunnar Bloom, and then you got Charles Johnson outside, Bart Marcourt, and then Drew Neville's just an incredible player at tight end. That's a lot to deal with. And if any one of those guys needs to be the star above all else, we're not going to be as good. And so, the focus on Jimmy Butler, I think we need to maybe realize that, but I think if we can keep the focus off of Derrick Rose and keep it off of Jimmy Butler and have it on all of us, I think that's when a basketball team is going to be the best they can be. So
that's a great observation. James from Richfield would like to know, how do you blend the piece of forgiveness while holding players accountable for their actions both on and off the field?
Wow. There's how do I blend it in my own life? We carry bitterness around, and that's a tough deal. Forgiving someone and really doing that is something that none of us are really very good at. And we have a saying that you get good at what you practice. So if you practice that, you'll get better at it. But I think, with forgiveness, as far as I need to forgive some people and without them asking for it. And because what happens is I get bitter, especially if they've hurt me. And, guys, especially we don't want to admit that we're hurt, and we don't want to cry, so we get angry, and then angry turns bitter, and then bitter we start making stories up that's worse than it really was. And if we could forgive and kind of move on, that would be better. But everything's a contest. So back to the question, sometimes players are kind of thinking that we know more than we know. And so, well, he let him do that, and we didn't let him do it. We didn't know. We don't know, you know what I mean? And so there's a kind of a deal where holding guys accountable. We gotta do that with fundamentals in the field, and then off the field, this is who we've said we want to be, and I'm not seeing that in your life, we don't want to. I think the older I am, the quicker I am to say I need you to change and I need you to work this way, and if you don't want to even try, then you need to disassociate from us. And so the accountability sometimes is a club on the head, but sometimes it's I need you to see this, own it, explain it, whatever, and let's move. And there's forgiveness in there. So
that's excellent. Our last, if I can speak correctly, our last question comes from Terry from St. Paul, who would like to know, if you could take a Bible verse to sum up this season for you, what would it be?
I don't want to, kind of crying about trials and all that stuff. I just think that we've had some unfortunate stuff. Excited to learn the growth. One of our seniors said yesterday, he says, I know that our young guys are going to have a taste of winning a lot, and it's so cool, and I'm glad that we did, because they were 12 and 1 when they were freshmen, our seniors, and so that's exciting. And it was neat that they wanted the young guys. They just love those young guys, and they want them to taste that, and because we're going to be really good, I think. So I'm just kind of mulling things over. But Chris Might spoke at a chapel for us, and he's a former player here, coach, and a Olaf coach and a friend, and he does some neat things with us and for us. But he spoke on Jeremiah 29:11, and here's a plan I have for you, and they're good, and they're not for calamity, and they're for joy. And sometimes we just take that verse and say, oh, God's got good plans, it's going to be okay. And what he did a great job of is taking those first 10 verses and saying, there's what happened. And, God, the Israel, we want to be out of here, we want to move on. And Jesus kind of said, or God said, you know what, stay there, stay in the fight, do your job, shut your face. He didn't say it that way, but I did. Shut your face, do your job, multiply, build your house, go to work, because the plans are made. Quit worrying about all this and that and this and that and this and that. Do your job, build your house. And we're kind of trying to do that right now. We want to simplify, and kind of just say offensively, this is who we are. Where did we stray? Defensively, this is who we are. Are we making calls that are too many adjustments, or are we, are we in the base? Are we in the core, what we call the core of who we are? And, it's easy to have that spiritual thing. I think about it in the church. When you're getting off, here's the deal. The core of a Christian thing would be the cross. Okay, Jesus working a cross. That's the base. That's the deal. And then in a church, the worship's got to be good, the preaching's got to be good. Sunday school. Those are all phenomenal things, but there's a chance when you're in the midst of all those that you're not getting back to that base piece. You know what I mean? And not that you're willful or sin. Not that it's nothing wrong, but you can kind of do that, and you can get a little fancy. And I want us to not. I'm fine if we're fancy, but it's got to come out of our base and the football piece, And so we're getting back to that. And I think a season like this causes us to do that, And we haven't had one like this in a long time. And so, we're going to treat it as a gift and go to work.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this week, Coach.
Thanks, man. My pleasure.
We want to thank Coach Johnson for joining us on Quick Slants this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Royals coach, please send them to us at stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's Steve Johnson at minorleaguesportsreport.com. Once again, the program will be airing the first Thursday of each month, so please have your questions to us by that Wednesday prior to the Thursday, so that we can give the coach a little time to review them before we record the show on Thursday morning. I am Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report. I want to thank you for joining us this season, and I hope you continue to enjoy the program each month during the off season. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Quick Slants.